forgot to do that at the very beginning. So we are recording now, FYI. As we keep going, so I think a lot of the work and information that we'll be sharing tonight is really grounded in climate justice. So I think it could be helpful to kind of collectively define that as we move through the evening. So thinking about climate justice as a movement that addresses the disproportionate social, economic, public health, and other adverse impacts that climate change has on marginalized populations, most notably communities of color and low-income communities. And when we talk about climate change, it's really important to talk about how changes in storm frequency, temperature, precipitation, et cetera, impact different communities. So often we see certain groups of people consistently experiencing more intense climate impacts despite contributing the least to climate change. And this fact is really at the root of a lot of the information and resources that we'll be sharing tonight as we talk about available programs. More specifically tonight also, we'll be covering topics that are related to energy justice, which is a movement to decentralize the energy system by centering communities in the ownership and access of clean, affordable local energy. Energy justice refers to the goal of achieving equity in both the social and economic participation in the energy system, while also remediating social, economic, and health burdens of those disproportionately harmed by our energy system. Energy justice explicitly centers the concerns of communities at the front line of climate change and those historically disenfranchised by racial and social inequities. And so at Energy Allies, a lot of our work is really grounded in tackling issues related to energy justice here in Boston. Energy democracy, I think, is another term that's useful to cover before we kind of dive into a lot of the programs that we'll discuss later on. Energy democracy, another term commonly used in the space, and is often synonymous in conversation with energy justice. And it can really hinges on this idea of the need to center communities in ownership and access of affordable clean energy. And it can often be broken down in this figure shown here into kind of 4 Ds of energy democracy, thinking about a decentralized system, a democratized system, a redistributed system, and a diversified system, all related to our energy system. And some of the programs that we'll be talking about that folks will highlight can really help us to reach some of those goals. So I think next it can be interesting and important to cover a term called energy burden. Energy burden is a clear indicator and a call for action for energy justice. The programs here can kind of cover under the distributed term of energy democracy that we talked about on the last slide, and that one of those 4 Ds. Energy burden is a simple calculation that revolves around the proportion of household income that is spent on energy costs. And households with lower incomes tend to spend 3 times more on their energy than non-low income households, despite often consuming less energy. So similar to a lot of our work at Energy Allies focusing on energy justice, we're often working to advance issues that will lessen energy burden impacts on households. And if we look at energy burden locally here in Boston, that's what this map is showing. We can see on the scale ranging from 0% all the way up to 11%. It's interesting to note, I think, that the average energy burden across the Commonwealth is a little bit over 3%. However, you can see in parts of Dorchester, Roxbury, and Mattapan are well above that average. And high rates of energy burden coupled with rising electricity costs this fall and winter just really show a need for projects and programs that can provide real cost savings to households. And that's what the programs that staff from All in Energy in the city of Boston will present on now to help us move down this path to lessen energy burden and improve energy efficiency in households. So with that, I will pause and pass to Mamadou from All in Energy to introduce himself and talk through some of the programs available via the MassSave program.
Thank you, Eli. Hello, everybody. My name is Mamadou Balde, Program Manager at All in Energy. And yeah, I'll cover the MassSave energy efficiency programs. So what is MassSave? Yeah, a lot of people ask, what is MassSave? It's a brand that's widespread in the state, but some people still have many questions. It's a sort of like the utility-led energy efficiency program that we have. It's basically, all the major utilities coming together and putting, creating this collaborative that we all pitch into, and in return they provide a bunch of energy efficiency incentives and rebates and services in general. And actually, so sorry, yeah. So before, Massachusetts actually is doing great in terms of energy efficiency. We've been working hard with the Department of Energy Resources, the utilities, and a bunch of other stakeholders to really be in the top 3 in the nation. So I guess this is something to be proud of. Next. So how is Mass Save, the program, how is it funded? So a lot of people ask this question: why am I getting this free, that free, or why am I getting these incentives that like maybe 90% off or 70% off? So basically, all of us through our electricity bills and gas bills, we pay an energy efficiency charge, and that goes to fund the program. So if you live in Boston, Eversource is the electricity provider. If you look at your electricity bill, you will see the energy efficiency charge, and that is collected by the program to basically fund its services. That's how it is funded. Next. So if you look at Mass Save, it's a bunch of kind of programs, right? So if you take Mass Save, the 3 main buckets are small residential buildings that are served, so 1 to 4 unit buildings, and you have 5+ multifamily buildings, and then you have a bucket for small businesses. If you take small residential buildings, 1 to 4, so people are served based on income. If you are what they call market rate or moderate income, there's a sort of a separate pathway that you take from somebody who would be income eligible or low income. But the ultimate goal here is to help people access energy, energy assessments and weatherization incentives, and HVAC upgrades and other relevant home energy efficiency services. And if you if you could go back, Eli, to the previous slide. So if you take small businesses, also the goal here is to sort of help them access no-cost home energy assessments, weatherization and air sealing, just like residential buildings are able to do. All right, well, let's talk about small residential buildings now, 1 to 4 unit buildings. So the first step in sort of taking advantage of Mass Save is to have a no-cost home energy assessment. So what is a no-cost home energy assessment? This is sort of where you book an appointment with either Mass Save, the lead vendors, or you can work with an approved contractor. Usually those are home performance contractors, also known as HPCs. So if you're a renter or an owner in a 1 to 4 unit building, this is something you can book, and you'll have an energy specialist or an energy advisor come out and check your house, check your installation, check your attic, check your basement, and you get a bunch of energy saving items. We'll talk about those in the next slide, but they also check the health and safety of your heating system, and they see if there's any if there's potential for air sealing or insulation. This is for the in-person or in-home energy assessment. You can also request virtual assessments that started back when the COVID pandemic started. Next. Energy saving package. So if you, we book the assessment, the energy advisor, when they come out, you will during the assessment, you'll get water saving, devices like faucet aerators and shower heads, high efficiency shower heads. Basically, those are like devices that would help you use less water. And you get a programmable thermostat, a thermostat that sort of helps you, control your how much energy you're using in the home. You get advanced power strips, you get light bulbs. So all these things, when you implement them and use them, that should help you reduce your energy consumption. Next. So on top of the energy assessment being free, there are a bunch of incentives like weatherization. Depending on your situation, you can get anywhere from 75 to 100% off of that. After the assessment, if there's a need to do what they call air sealing, that's usually done at no cost. So you can get air sealing done. But for weatherization, if you're a single family owner, you get 75% off. If you live in a 2 to 4 unit building where you are taking action individually, you also get 75% off. But if you are a renter, if you're in 1 to 4 unit building where you are a renter, if you take action, weatherization would be covered by the program. Also, if you live in a multifamily building, meaning 2 to 4 unit building, and you sort of everybody in the building takes action collectively at the same time, right? You would be able to get installation done at no cost as well. And for moderate income households or moderate income people, basically people earning anywhere between 61 and 80% of the state median income, you also get installation done at no cost. Next. So that was for weatherization incentives. So sometimes before doing weatherization, you need to remedy certain issues. So if you have knob and tube wiring issues in the house, which is an old type of wiring system, if you have that, you need to remedy those problems before you're able to install weatherization. If you have asbestos in the house or excessive moisture, you need to remedy those. And like a lot of people, you need to pay a lot of money to remedy that. And so the program has what they call pre-weatherization barrier incentives. So in this case, if you have one of these issues and you have problem paying for that, then the program can help. And if you're as you can see there, if you're a moderate income person, you have up to $7,000, and for rental units in 2 to 4 unit buildings, up to $5,000 per unit. Next. All right, so that was the weatherization barrier incentives. They also have great incentives. I like these for HVAC upgrades. So if you're interested in upgrading your heating or cooling system, if you're interested in heat pumps, great incentives here. So for air source heat pumps for the entire house, so whole home heat pumps, you get up to $10,000 off for air source heat pumps. For ground source heat pumps, also known as geothermal heat pumps, you get up to $15,000 off. And of course, rebates are also available if you just want to have heat pumps for certain parts of the home. And for moderate income, for non-gas heated homes, you have even more generous incentives. So for air source, you get up to $16,000 off. For ground source, up to $30,000 off, which is great. Next. And the next thing the folks can take advantage of is the heat loan, which is a 0% financing opportunity. So you can get up to $25,000 off. Excuse me, not off, up to $25,000 and pay that off over a period of 7 years. Yeah, you basically get up to that amount with no interest at all. And if you're making any upgrades, if you want to improve your heating system or cooling system, if you want to get a water heater or you're interested in battery storage, this is an opportunity you can take advantage of to finance that project or any of these projects here. All right, let's talk about the income eligible program now, which is sort of different from the previous points we touched on. So that was for market rate and moderate income people. So people earning above 80% of the state median income and people earning between 61 and 80%. Now, income eligible, it's for people earning about 60% or less of the state median income. So if you're a renter or an owner, 1 to 4 unit building where 50% or more of the households living in the building qualifies low income, meaning if they're earning 60% or less of the state median income, or if you're getting fuel assistance on your getting fuel assistance in general, or you're getting an electric or gas discount on your electricity bill, then you would be qualified as income eligible customer or a low-income customer. Next. And here we have the chart. This is, as you can see there, based on the number of members in the household. So if you are just one person, so one member household, 60%, that is 42,411. So for a 2-member household, that's 55,461. That's the income eligible program there. And the column next to it, enhanced residential program, that's for moderate income. So that's the 61 to 80% of the state median income. So you can just see here, based on the number of people in your household, kind of estimate if you would be qualified for income eligible or not. So the income eligible is unlike the sort of the market rate and moderate income, which are kind of the pathways are different, right? Those are directly managed by Mass Save. For the income eligible, there's a different organization that manages that, and that's called the CAP agency, the Community Action Program Agency. And in Boston, that's ABCD. And for the incentives are just way better here. So if you're income eligible, basically any efficiency upgrades that you're qualified for will be paid for by the program. So think, if you do the assessment, the house needs installation, you get all of that covered by the program, air sealing covered. If you're interested in heat pumps, previously we saw you had like a certain, you could get like a discount up to a certain amount, but in this case, if you're qualified for heat pumps, all of that will be paid for by the program. Yeah, just like the market rate in moderate income, income eligible people also have pre-weatherization barrier mitigation available. So if you have the assessment and you have knob and tube wiring issues in the house, or excessive moisture or asbestos or vermiculite, the CAP agencies provide relief. They provide help in remedying these problems before doing weatherization. Next. All right, now let's talk about 5+ multifamily buildings. So everything so far was 1 to 4 unit buildings, and now 5+. So if the difference here is that if you live in a 5+ unit building, you cannot take action. First of all, you cannot take action individually. So you need to involve the property owner or the property manager. So if you're interested in that, you can kind of coordinate with those people. They'll schedule the no cost to multifamily energy assessment. And these people living in multifamily buildings also have access to the same incentives. So, insulation, you have air sealing. If you're interested in water heating equipment or heating and cooling equipment in general, they have access to the same incentives. It's a different process though. So it's a different number if you're interested in that. So that's the number there to call for that. We can provide that at the end. And then we have the lean multifamily program, which is sort of like the low income kind of part or a program for multifamily buildings. So if you live in a 5+ unit building and 50% or more of the people living in that multifamily qualify as low income, then you go through the lean pathway. So you can visit lean's website, or you can go through we'll provide a link at the end. You can go through that and get served. But yeah, the difference is that if you live in a multifamily building, if everybody's market rate or moderate income, you go through the regular pathway, which is the number provided just before this, and then the lean, if you're considered a low income household, or if the building is considered low income, you go through lean, which is the Central State Services Agency. And lastly, we have the small business program. So this is, of course, to serve small businesses. So what is considered a small business and under this program? Well, a small business is any business consuming less than 40 therms of natural gas and or 1.5 million kilowatt hours of electricity annually. So this usually includes small, nonprofit organizations, small businesses in general, houses of worship, small grocery stores, and restaurants. But ultimately, the PAs or the program sponsors kind of they determine what the small business is on a sort of case by case basis, and each program sponsor has sort of its own incentives, and we'll talk about that in the next slide. Just like residential homes, residential pathways, if you're a small business, the process is almost the same thing. You request a no cost, no obligation energy assessment, and you get the sort of the energy specialists come out. They come out from the small business vendor. So for each territory, there's a small business vendor, and they'll come out and they do the assessment of your small business, your site, and they recommend energy efficiency things to do to kind of upgrade your place of business, and the incentives are up to 70% off. And sometimes the utilities, they have kind of specific campaigns. They call it main streets, where they basically increase the incentive level, and they go out and have like a campaign to kind of help small businesses take advantage of like the incentives they have for them. And that was the end of it. So if you want to get started, you can, generally speaking, you can call that number there, and we can kind of help you navigate. And it's a lot of information, and it's kind of, you have multiple kind of programs and multiple things going on. But if you call that number there, we can help you help connect you to the right agencies, or you can visit us at masssave.com/Boston. And from there, you will be able to connect with us. Thank you. I'll send it back to Eli.
So thank you, Mamadou, for leading us through that. And we'll have plenty of time in a little bit to ask questions to Mamadou if anything came up. Also, feel free, while it's on your mind, if you want to if you have any questions, to leave them in the chat. But yeah, we'll have time in a few minutes just to kind of ask some questions to Mamadou if you have any of those. And with that, yeah, I'd love to pass it over to Deegan Larkin from the city of Boston to take us through our next few slides.
Sure. Hi, everybody. So my name is Deegan, and I work for the City of Boston's Environment Department. And I'm here with Louisa as well. She works for the City of Boston's Community Engagement Cabinet. And we're here to talk about how the Mass Save program fits into the city's initiatives to help residents better afford their energy bills. And then Louisa will be speaking specifically about an additional city resource that's focused on your electric bills, called Boston Community Choice Electricity. All right, next slide. So the city has partnered with the local sponsors of Mass Save, so that's Eversource and National Grid here in Boston, to help expand access to the Mass Save program for residents who may face additional barriers for participating in the program. And so our partnership is called the Community First Partnership. And our goal is to support specifically renters, small business owners, residents who speak languages other than English, and residents with low to moderate income better navigate the program. And then we're working primarily with Mattapan, East Boston, Dorchester, and Roxbury. So when you follow that link that Mamadou was just talking about, or you call that phone number, it goes to our CFP portal so that we in the city can provide additional support and follow up. And I will say it's a little easier if you go to the website. It helps us kind of follow up with you a bit quicker. So that's the masssave.com/Boston. All right, and then I'm going to turn it over to Louisa now, and she's going to talk about Boston Community Choice Electricity.
Thanks, Deegan. So Boston Community Choice Electricity is a really exciting city program that tackles a lot of different issues at once. It aims to supply as many homes, small businesses, and community centers as possible with renewable energy plans at a really affordable price. It's what's known as a municipal aggregation, which is when the electricity needs of all of the customers within a city are automatically pooled together unless they opt out or have contract blocks on their current plans. Boston voted to do this in 2021 and became the largest of over 170 similar models in Massachusetts. It's so popular because you unify the many electricity counts in the city or town, in our case, Boston, and you create a really, really powerful consumer. And when you're doing it through the city of Boston, you know that you also have us looking out for you. So the model empowers the city in negotiations with electricity suppliers in the area and allows us to bargain for you and go to bat for the fairest, cleanest, and most affordable plan. Also, because we're buying in bulk, we save a lot of money. So we bring suppliers the option to have all of the accounts, all of the hundreds of thousands of accounts in Boston serviced by them. And in turn, they come to the table with a really great deal because they want to win you all, obviously. So as you can see, we offer 3 different plans that all give you, that have a varying level of renewable energy that you can buy for pretty affordable rates. And so that every Bostonian can find one that works for them. We offer a 22% renewable energy plan for about 10.9 cents a kilowatt, 32% renewable for just 11 cents a kilowatt. So you get a lot more renewable energy for not a lot more money per kilowatt. And then our 100% green renewable plan only costs 14 cents a kilowatt. So all of our plans are at least half as expensive as the Eversource basic service plan, as you can see this blue bar here. And our cheapest plan is 1/6 of the cost as some of the documented prices of third-party suppliers in the area. So it really is the most affordable electricity that you can get in Boston right now. But it is also obviously a big priority here is that it is renewable. We work with solar and wind farms in the Massachusetts and New England area. So we're supporting local green energy initiatives and technology, and we're working towards the Boston emission goals, which we want to be carbon neutral by 2050. So it's tackling a lot of things. We're bringing cleaner energy to homes and for a price that's a lot more reasonable than the other options available to you. And it's also customizable. So people have the option to tailor it to their needs, to opt up, to opt down at any time. And most by virtue of it being a municipal aggregation, and we voted on it, so we agreed into that program, most Boston residents are automatically enrolled on this unless they send in a mailer opting out or they have a block on their account, which we'll get into a little in a second. So one of the missions of BCCE is to get as many residents as possible off of the third-party suppliers. This is this crazy, scary red bar at the bottom. These are private businesses, and so even as they may be providing an electrical service to you, their ultimate aim is to make money, as you can see, as it's almost 6 times more expensive. I'm ready for the next slide, whenever you are. So electricity rates are just increasing, and especially in third-party suppliers where you can't really, we have less of a tracking controlling mechanism over that. So since 2015, third-party suppliers cost Massachusetts an extra $426 billion that they didn't have to be paying if they were on publicly organized plans, such as even the Eversource basic rate. And so the average household would pay about on a third-party supplier would pay $200 to $500 more than they needed to each year. And this happens because these third-party suppliers often will loop customers into contracts that are hard to understand, hard to terminate, and have fees hidden around every corner, and are also victim to inflation. When we're bargaining for you and we're getting you a long-term contract like the ones you see on the left here, these 3, they're way less victim to inflation and the changeable nature of the economy. And so you get a little more security and stability. Also, third-party suppliers can put a block on your account so you don't immediately get the benefits of this opt-in program. You aren't automatically enrolled and don't automatically start saving money. So I would really recommend checking your bill when you get home. We'll get into that in a second. But between January and September, as you can see, are the balls on the left, the city of Boston circles are significantly smaller, significantly cheaper than other options. So since this program has been enrolled between January and September of 2022, it saved all of its participants over $65 million compared to if they were on the Eversource basic rate, and not to mention the much pricier private suppliers. So it's an incredible money saving tool, and it is an incredible support to local green energy innovators. And it's also an incredible support to the average Boston family who are getting cleaner energy in their homes for a cheaper rate. We currently have about 70% of the city's eligible accounts enrolled, which is, we have more than 330,000 accounts on the BCCE team, which is incredible. And we're so glad that it's an opt-in program so we can get as many participants as possible. But we want everyone, and we would have everyone if there weren't blocks and obviously the opt-out mechanism, but these blocks that third-party suppliers can put on your account are really damaging to the program. BCCE is also helping to shine a light on this environmental injustice because we're looking at these accounts and these blocks and where they are. And based on our data, we have seen that the lowest ratio of accounts that are signed up through BCCE are in Dorchester, Roxbury, Mattapan, and East Boston. So this kind of shines a light on these third-party blocks, or it can indicate third-party blocks, and that some of Boston's most vulnerable and underserved residents are being blocked from accessing this what should be an automatic money saver that the city is creating for people. So we're currently targeting outreach and education and our program education and registration to these areas, because we really want this to reach everyone, because it works towards the city goals and it works towards people's individual goals. So I urge everyone to look at their electricity bill and see who your supplier is. If it's not already BCCE, then you have money to be saving. There's money on the table for you. So please visit the boston.gov website and the BCCE website within that, and Boston Community Choice Electricity, and you can opt in online, or you can opt up online, you can opt down online to any of our 3 plans in a really user-friendly form. But we also have an option to register directly with the program manager herself for an appointment where she will personally walk you through the program and help you register and make sure you're taking advantage of those resources. Thank you. Next.
Awesome. Thank you, Louisa. I think that takes us through our presentation. We're a relatively small group tonight, so I'd love if folks have any questions based on those 2 presentations. Again, feel free to drop them in the chat. Also, feel free to use the raise hand feature in Zoom. You can take yourself off mute and ask your question if you have any questions for our presenters so far. And maybe I can prompt one to kind of get us going. Louisa, you just mentioned all the great resources available, and at the end kind of started to talk through just interpreting and kind of being able to read and understand all the nuances that are included in your energy bill. And Mamadou, on one of your earlier slides, you had a screenshot kind of a utility bill. And so I'm curious, this can be to anybody, any of our presenters, if folks just have questions about kind of how to interpret and really understand what's going on in their utility bill. Louisa, you just mentioned a resource, somebody who can help folks walk through to sign up for the BCCE program. What other resources are kind of out there for folks just to understand what's going on your utility bill?
I can chime in on that actually. So All in Energy offers what we call energy bill checkups. So you can basically sign up and connect with one of our specialists where they kind of, walk through your energy bill, electricity bill, to see what's going on, like see if you're signed up for third-party competitive suppliers, or if you are, if you could be taking advantage of discount rates from utilities. So I can drop that in the chat. it's a service that we offer on the side, and a lot of people take advantage of it. It's just one great way to, to learn more about your utility bill.
Thanks, Mamadou.
Is the Boston Community Choice Electricity Program available to businesses yet, or just residents?
So it is available to small businesses. We don't really service really large corporations in the area, but there's a kilowatt cap that I can get for you in just a second. Let me just look back on the Boston website. So we don't go by what type of business it is. It's more by the amount of electricity we're using, because we really want to funnel, while we want everyone on green energy, we want to funnel the savings that are associated with the Boston Community Choice Green Energy to smaller residents, smaller businesses, but places of worship also can register, community centers, anything under the kilowatt cap. Let me check on that for you and put it in the chat.
Because we are a 30-unit condominium association, but we don't have individual metering. When we were in development, our design manager said that it would be more cost effective to go with 1 meter for the entire building because we would get a much lower rate. So we did that, and that saved us a lot of money on electricity. But now I'm wondering if it's going to come back to bite us in the butt and not let us into the community choice electricity program.
Yeah, I'll look right into that for you.
Okay.
We can also follow up with some more resources, because that can be a tricky issue sometimes for buildings that are master metered, to make sure that energy savings are passed on not only to the owner of the building, right, but actually to tenants and people living, residents of those buildings. So can share some more resources after this too, and some follow-up emails that we'll be sending out as well.
Right, I have found it. Oop, I've almost found it. My bad.
Any other questions for our presenters?
I can actually jump in as well. To follow up on your question about the condominium building, there's also something called BERDO for the city of Boston, which requires you to report your energy usage. But it's for residential buildings that are 20,000 square feet or larger. I guess, or have 15 or more units. Now, did you say there were 30 in the condo?
Yes, we have 30 units of all different sizes, from studio to a 4-bedroom.
Okay. I'm wondering if you've had any correspondence with the city of Boston's BERDO team, if that sounds familiar at all.
Yes, actually, my next door neighbor, David Hyman, manages the BERDO reporting for our building. So I could check in with him and find out what our electricity usage is. Yeah,
that sounds like the next steps. I think typically if you're large enough to qualify for BERDO, then I think, and Lisa, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that would usually mean you're above the small business, the usage, but I'm not positive. So it'd be something we'd have to check in on.
Okay.
Great. Well, if any other questions come up, definitely drop them in the chat. There's one more thing that I'd like to cover, and then we'll wrap up for the evening a little bit early. I just wanted to share another example of a project that is in the works right now, that is hoping to scale to a number of projects across the city. But it's a project that Energy Allies, the nonprofit I work with, has been working on for the better part of 2 years, with support from a community advisory board of local energy justice champions in Dorchester, Roxbury, and Mattapan. We've been meeting regularly since October of 2021 with this idea of a community-led, community-owned solar array in Dorchester, where not only are we creating energy savings via the project that will be constructed, but also embedding equity and environmental justice throughout the entire design process. So being really conscious with contracts that we sign and who we're working with for different parts of the construction and engineering and procurement phases of the project. And thinking about longer term down the line, not only who will be benefiting from the energy produced, but thinking about continued learning and education opportunities, resource sharing that we can create through this community-led, community-designed project that will be built. Our first project that we're working on will be sited at a new food co-op that's being built in Dorchester. Right now, our main issue is working to establish the Boston Community Solar Cooperative, which would be a co-op, member-owned co-op, where folks will have the opportunity to buy in to the cooperative, support future development of community-owned solar arrays in the city of Boston that will primarily benefit income qualifying residents in the city through a mechanism, something called community solar. Right now, I think it's really interesting to note that although community solar is often touted as a more equitable, accessible form of solar, in that it doesn't require home ownership, it doesn't require solar panels to be built on your own residence. Less than 4.7% of community solar projects in Massachusetts currently serve income qualifying households. So not only will this project directly benefit income qualifying households, but we're doing it in a way where folks will have an ownership stake, long-term ownership stake in the asset that's built, and be able to accrue wealth over time as a result, in addition to seeing energy savings on their regular utility bill. So there's no project right now to sign up for, but it is something that we're working on very hard, and we're hoping to kind of launch come the summer time. Once construction at the Dorchester Food Co-op is complete, we'll then be kind of focusing our efforts on bringing in member owners to the solar cooperative, which is being built on the roof of the food co-op. So something else to share as well as we wrap up tonight. I guess I can pause quickly because there's, again, for a small group, if there are any questions about that initiative. That's great. That's awesome. Yeah, we held an event back in January at the food co-op to kind of do a launch of this. And yeah, we're hoping this is our first project in partnership with food co-op and Be It Aid, and then hoping to scale it to additional projects across the city once this first project is completed. So yeah, I want to say thank you for joining tonight. We'll end a little bit early. We had hoped to break into some breakout rooms, but not needed given our size tonight. So just going to share some contact information for the folks who presented tonight. Say thanks to everybody who did so, as well as to folks who joined in to listen and to learn. And we'll be following up with an email after this with information about all the resources that we shared, as well as a copy of these slides. So just want to say thank you again for joining, and hope you have a great rest of your night.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.